Okay, so supposedly I'm live, and I wonder if you can hear me. I wonder if I can hear me. I can hear me, but I'm here, and I'm glad you're here if you are here today. Just doing a microphone test, really. Just supposedly I'm live. Okay, sounds pretty good. I think I figured out how to get rid of that echo. Oh my gosh, did that bother me listening back to my last live stream, which was Reality's Edge number 1. This is Reality's Edge, the Edge of Reality number 2. And I'm glad you're here. And what do I have to share today? Well, it seems I got fooled by AI, so I'm a little bit embarrassed about it. But, you know, nobody's perfect. It's pretty good. And you have to trust your gut. You have to. And some people's gut is a little bit better than others, and normally mine's pretty good, but yeah. And yeah, it's not to say, it's a new skill. It's a new skill that everybody has to develop, just like we have with the news, where you can sniff out things that don't seem right and use it to your own credit in being able to discern between something you should really worry about, like duck and cover, and something you really shouldn't worry about, like duck and cover, depending on what you're supposed to duck and cover from, for example. But so I'm sorry to hear that, South Dakota boys. You don't enjoy being alive. Well, I think everybody finds themselves in that place sometimes. But we're here for a reason, and we may not know what that reason is, or we might. We may think it's one thing and it turns out to be another. You just take it as it comes, I guess. Roll with it and do your best, because what else can you do? Definitely don't rely on other people for your happiness, because people will let you down. So, yeah. But now I'm sounding like I'm in favor of the computer AI, because it won't let you down. It probably wouldn't let you down as much as people, but I'm still in favor of actual real people. In fact, yeah, so I posted something because I found some music I like, but then when I thought, oh man, somebody mentioned it sounds like it could be AI, and the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that's right. And you feel violated a little bit, because there's something that is not fair about AI, and that's that it pulls from the actual artists and people who originally created the music that it uses to generate the tunes. We all understood that with the corporate music, where they would just say, okay, we just get some good-looking people, auto-tune them up, and have them sing this, one of these 4-chord songs that are always typically popular, give it a good beat, etc., market it, and off you go. And we could see through that, whereas others couldn't. I mean, I don't know where you found yourself with that, but I was definitely more into the authentic stuff. Of course, it's a whole spectrum, because you can go completely to the other side, where it's a little too authentic. It's a little too organic, where you have to, it has to have some kind of appeal. Like, you have to draw on something that is palatable. So anyway, let's see what you guys have to say here. Life after beating cancer. That's awesome, Max. Congratulations. Lawrence said the same thing. Yeah. But Yeah, AI will let you down. The answers it gives are it's just a language predictor pretty much at this point. So it's not trying to discern what is correct or not. They got out of that pretty quickly, because if you use a computer to discern what is correct and what is not correct, well, it gets very uncomfortable very quickly, because illusions begin to be shattered. So if you do a proper analysis on something, like they do with body language or verbal choice, word choice analysis, language, for things like the press conference by the astronauts after the Apollo 11 mission. They were released from quarantine, heroes of the world. They walked on the moon. And the people who do an honest body language or other similar style analysis don't necessarily like to find out what they start to see there if they are honest. And so people were utilizing AI to do that for a while, and it kind of got out of that. They had to do some pivots. Speaking of pivots, I thought about pivoting to kind of a different angle. That didn't go so well. I made the video about boating and this and that. So I don't know. I know people want me to talk about architecture, but I haven't been looking into that lately. What I have been looking into is something that, different things that I've started to share a little bit, but my conclusions, what I did this previous live stream for, was and is really important about the edge of reality. And I felt like there were some answers that there's a flow, there's a lifestyle that is a groove I can see myself comfortable in for the foreseeable future, near and distant future. And that isn't to do endless research. It's not to go around ringing an alarm bell and trying to wake people up who don't want to hear it. It's not about being a martyr and sacrificing all kinds of different things to be right, when being right doesn't. What does it do? What does it do? That's the key, because philosophically, you want to know the truth about all kinds of things. Also, where things are up for interpretation, ultimately, I think it comes down to, what does it mean for you and your situation and your reality, the people, the relationships that you have, that you value, what you value in life. It should include relationships, and where it includes relationships, you have to consider that. So if a subject is discussed and somebody you care about believes one thing and you believe another, what's more important, your relationship with that person or you being right? Because sometimes you will be sure that you're right and you're actually close, maybe, but you're not completely right, or probably not completely wrong, but sometimes. And it's we all know we've been fooled at some point. Different people can be fooled. We just have to chill out and relax a little bit and realize what's being done to us, and not be set off wasting our energy pushing or pursuing or wrestling with things that it's maybe a distraction, maybe it's an energy drain, maybe, is it, sometimes it's like being Don Quixote and you're challenging windmills or whatever. But other times something might seem so minor, and my gosh, is it important, like life changing. And so, like the boating video I shared, I made it unlisted now, but I want to redo it with better audio, and I want to, just as a public service, because little decisions can be life changing when you think something doesn't matter, like people think when they get on a boat. Hey, the captain, he's been boating for years, knows more than me, and you just do whatever, and then all of a sudden they're on an inlet heading out to the ocean, and the wind is opposing the flow of the tide, and the chop increases so much that if you are on a certain type of boat and the captain has the engine trimmed at a certain angle, which makes sense on flat water, but not when you're crossing like the Boca or the Hullover Inlet, you can get, in seconds, you can have your life changed in a not good way. Or if you're the captain and you're responsible for these people and you don't take it seriously enough. Anyway, I just thought it's better to focus on some of these more practical things sometimes, amidst, I'm not going to let go of the esoteric and, do you want to be bored? I don't want to be bored. I'm always going to be looking into these things. Like I've been looking into the Sasquatch Bigfoot question, and maybe I'll share how that came about. It's kind of a long story, but let me think about it for a second here. I mean, there are a lot of factors, but what got me more actively researching it was I became very interested in mountain climbing, and that's something I want to do. And I couldn't get enough content of mountain climbing. I watched all these documentaries. And of course, I started off really big. I started off with watching about K2 and Everest. There are two documentaries, at least, on K2. One's called The Summit that I would recommend. It's just fascinating real-life adventure. Some of it's dramatized, but thank goodness, because the actual footage that they do have of some of these things, you probably wouldn't want to see, the accidents and things. But there's stories of triumph. There's one called Meru that I recommend. It's very surprising. It blew away my expectations. People who are interested in mountain climbing, one guy is a free solo climber. That's not for me. But it's just interesting to see how these things turn out. And they're challenging. A lot of them, like the free solo climbers, to me, they're challenging the edge of reality, because it's not natural to remain calm when you're dangling by one hand over, on the side of 90-degree slope somewhere, crumbling rocks and such. Why am I stuttering? I never stutter. It interests me. It always kind of interested me a little bit, but all of a sudden I became very interested. Well, anyway, I'm watching all this mountain climbing stuff, and so there's that. And then one of these things, I learned about the greats of the past. Not just Sir Edmund Hillary, but there's like all kinds of different Messner is this German mountain climber. There's these guys that are, and gals. Some of the most impressive ones are women. But Messner is one who does it without oxygen, supplemental oxygen, for example. And so I was learning a lot about them. And there's fakery involved too with that, of course, like with everything there, not with him, but with there are other ones that claim to have summited and didn't, and vice versa. I think there's a woman who summited without oxygen. She's not in the history books because somebody said she was lying and they just believed him, and there's no evidence that she was lying. Anyway, if you look up one of these climbers, last name of Shipton, he was on Everest, and this is in the 50s, I believe, 50s or early 60s, I think it was the 50s. Sir Edmund Hillary climbed it with, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. I don't remember it's not just him. It shouldn't just be him that gets the credit, because the Sherpa was with him. So Nangu Parat, I think was his name. Somebody can help me out in the comments, because I don't want to leave him out. That's definitely not fair. The Sherpas deserve as much credit. But Shipton was up on Everest and saw a footprint and took a picture of it next to his ice axe. And I just don't see, there's more than one picture, but these bare footprints up in the snow at those altitudes, when it's, I don't know for sure if it was in the death zone, but it was up there. There's nobody else up there. There's nobody who's up there. It's almost 100%. So what those footprints were, would he fake that? Like, why? Why would he do that? And then it matches the legends of the Yeti and all that stuff. But then what do you do with that information? He shared it, and you can look it up. But does anything become of it? Is anybody seeing it, or did they cage one? Or no, that's not going to happen. There are some videos out there of these things going up mountains and stuff. A lot of them are fake, but I don't think all of them are. But the ones that aren't fake, whatever that is that they're filming, that's about as far as it's going to go. And it's been that way. So, but this is how I got kind of interested in that, because I think I came across Shipton's photo and I thought, oh, that's weird. Because I knew enough about mountain climbing at that point to know that there's no way somebody else just went ahead of him and did that to fool him and put prints there. Or would he be lying? I guess that's possible. You can always say that. But then you look at the people who would be supposedly lying about something, and it gets harder and harder the more you look into it to say that, yeah, they could be lying, because I really don't think they are. For example, I expected, and it's the case, that many of you are sharing right now, or have shared in comments your own experiences, or people that you know and trust that say they saw this or that, and that's as far as it goes. But I expected that would be the case, because it seems to be that much a part of everybody's reality. Does it go beyond that? For most people, no. And then generally for society, I can almost guarantee that it won't go beyond that. But if it did, then it would go like this. It would go the way it was with gorillas, because gorillas were mythical creatures up and through the 1800s. And guess what year? Right around 1850. I don't know the exact year. Somebody finally got, I don't think it was a whole gorilla, but it's gruesome and graphic, but they got the head of the gorilla to a taxiderm, and then it was classified and accepted as something real, and then now they're in zoos and such. But before then, they were considered kind of mythical. They were elusive and this and that. So if that would happen with, let's say, Yeti, that there's somebody found a Yeti or whatever, then something else would take the place of that as the edge of reality, the cryptid thing, like it would be the Dog Man at that point or something, Mothman. There's something waiting in the wings. It could have wings and glowing red eyes, but there's always something waiting in the wings. And so that's it. And also the person who I respected a lot that got onto the subject, which made me really look into it, that was Les Stroud. Les as in Lester Stroud, the Survivor Man. And if you don't want to mix him up with Bear Grylls, who did the survival show that was kind of fake or whatever. Survivor Man was not that way. And from everything I can tell of him, okay, he does make his living off of getting attention. And so you could say, oh, he would do this to get attention, but that's not how it happened for him. If you are to believe him, again, you'd have to call him a liar, which I'm not doing. I'm not willing to do that. I have no reason to believe that he would lie. But in his experience, he was filming for season 2, one of his survival episodes. I think it was in Alaska, and he was dropped off in a very remote area. There are no people. It's just like the Shipton incident. There's no way there's anybody there. So, but he didn't see a footprint. What he experienced was he heard stuff, and he felt the ground shake when something jumped down, and he knows all the sounds of the different animals that are there that they could possibly make because he's spent so much time in the wilderness. I believe him when he says it was something making sounds that he couldn't explain and this and that. And so what did he do with it? Did he try to cash in on it or whatever? Well, actually, no, he kept it to himself, but it got him interested in it. And then he waited and waited, and then when the time was right for him, he decided to kind of open up with what he's been looking into. And I like how he researches it, because he doesn't say what he believes. I mean, it's obvious because he had experiences that he's interested, but he calls it the question of, what's he call it? The question of Bigfoot, I think. And he's doing a documentary, but he doesn't want to do it through any media channels. He owns his own stuff, and I respect that. Commercially, you don't make as much money that way until you do. But and he's been successful, but he could really cash in. Then he loses creative control, and then it becomes less truthful. And so I just have the sense with him that he's very much interested in honesty and being true. And so when he shares those things, that got me interested, because I thought, okay, well, I'll go along with him on this little journey of the question of it. And so I'm looking into it myself. But as I sit here today talking to you, I think I can be fooled. I know I can be fooled, and it's happened recently. And not just with the AI, but there were videos. So there are some videos that people took. There's the Patterson-Gimlin film and this and that. It's one of the better ones. Very hard to debunk. But there was one that I saw that I thought, my gosh, that seems so real. Like, I don't see how it could be faked. Turns out it was. Not the Patterson-Gimlin. It was the Mississippi skunk ape video. It just looks like, they set a gorilla into the Mississippi bayou. And yeah. So, and I made the other video about the desert one. I made that unlisted because I don't know. Because I'm like, I can be fooled. So I'm not going to hang my hat on anything. But Les Stroud isn't hanging his hat on anything other than what he himself goes out and does. And it's the perfect example of the edge of reality for what he's experienced. One of my favorite interactions that he had was he wedged an apple in a tree, and I think he put like candy bars and different things, but mainly he trained a camera on this apple that's wedged into a tree. And so the camera is activated in, I think it was either 1/100th or 1/10th of a second. It's motion activated. So it would film a mouse running around, a moth flying by, and there's no wind. If the wind were blowing, then the limbs would shake and it would always be activated. But he went out there and the apple was gone, and he's thinking, oh my gosh, okay, so now the apple's way up in the tree. So he thought, okay, now I would have the footage. And he reviewed the video, and it's the edge of reality. The apple's there, and then it's not there. It did activate the camera. There's no physical way to have removed the apple. The apple would have to go from 0 to 50 miles an hour in an instant. Or the camera would have to malfunction, but there's no reason to think the camera would have malfunctioned. What did it capture? Well, it captured the apple just vanishing, one branch moving, and then there's this little blob on the bottom left of the screen that pops up and down, but it's not enough to see anything. It just looks like it could be a bear paw, or it could be a little fuzzy hat, or I don't know. That's all that's going to come out of it. And that's, if I do get a chance to chat with him, I'm going to tell him my prediction with what he's investigating is it's just going to be that. It's going to be inconclusive. It's the nature of this subject, because you're talking about the edge of reality. It's just like, you want to go and do experiments right on the South Pole yourself. Good luck with that, because you're asking too much, that you're too close to the edge of reality. You want to be an astronaut, you want to walk on the moon, good luck with that, because that's one of those topics, one of those subjects, edge of reality. There's a big event, since we're talking about space stuff and Captain Kirk, if you know what I'm talking about, and there's this big event. Well, it seems like it should be pretty cut and dried, law enforcement, that's it. No, it's anything but normal. It's totally abnormal, because it just gives you the vibe. It's the edge of reality. Nothing about it is going to make sense, really. It's going to be used and just for all this negative energy to divide people and all this type of stuff. And that's what these topics do. And that's why a lot of people don't want to discuss them. And it's a strange thing that I would have chosen this. But again, I'm completely straightforward with you in my motives, that I started this channel to debunk these types of things because they bothered me in a way. Why doesn't it go away? Because I was pretty much as mainstream as anybody on any of these topics other than evolution. I didn't buy into the Darwinian thing except for about a period of less than a year during my entire life. I tried that. It didn't fit. It was like putting on a pair of soaking wet, cold pants that were not cut for you. They're not your size. It just didn't fit. I couldn't go on that way. I just can't. But when the weird thing is, when I went into all these different topics, I went to debunk them, and it ended up being like, no, I cannot honestly say with an open mind and a pure motivation or pure heart, I cannot call these people liars or crazy, because they are making points. But I also realized to not debunk it would make me appear to be crazy and all this stuff that I thought, like most of the world thinks whenever somebody talks about whatever. And and that complicates things. So I handled it the way that I did. And, I went down some avenues where it was a dead end or something really wasn't that way, but it was almost never something that I could look into something and completely debunk it. And I hadn't looked into the Bigfoot thing until this year. It was when I started. But again, it was just the same thing as the original topics I started this channel for to debunk, that at least I had the sense, I call it UAP channel, because I had the sense that there will be lights in the sky that you can't explain, and that's the one thing that, like, I understood edge of reality with that. And then I also understood with the evolution stuff that, of course, it can't be proven, but it's accepted, and it just somehow goes on that way. That's science. It's accepted. Can't be proven, can't be observed, but it's accepted science because it is. And that kind of challenges reality. That's where I faced that with looking my mentors and professors in college, professors of physics, looking them in the eye when they would tell me something with a straight face that, if only, like, I remember with this, a professor of physics, Caltech, looked at me in the eyes and said with a straight face that if octopi had evolved thumbs, they would be the civilization perhaps before us, monkeys. And it's just I was only 19 years old or whatever. It's just jaw-dropping to me. Somebody so smart could say that with a straight face, but it's like this, one of these topics. It's the edge of reality. It's not going to go away, and it will divide people. That's how it goes. So I watched I consume the content, and I think I'm about to a point where I'm about done with the Bigfoot stuff, because what I've found with that, speaking of AI, there's a cottage industry where people just have a bogus story made up by AI that rings true because it's based on people's real life eyewitness accounts and testimonies. There are tens of thousands of them, of credible people, First Nation people, hunters, scientists, doctors, people from every walk of life have some kind of an encounter or story. It's never totally photo documented or anything. Like the best example of that would probably be the Patterson-Gimlin film, where you can analyze it all you want. It's not, if you believe it's going to be fake, then you'll find something about it where you can say, oh, well, it's fake. But if you actually watch one of the interviews with Gimlin talking about it, the guy's a genuine, straight up guy, and the story kind of makes sense or whatever. But the way it works is somebody will have, let's say somebody has something, they have evidence, let's say footprints. Well, what do you do with that? It's nothing really new or novel, but it's new to you because it shakes up your whole reality, because you are somewhere where you know there are no other people and you see these big footprints, and okay, how do you explain that? Do you just ignore it? Just say, because that's childish to me to just say, no, I didn't see that. I mean, that is so weak. But then also culturally, socially, if you have a good social IQ, you know better than to go out. I mean, I'm not going to say I have a low social IQ, but I believed in honesty and truth and integrity and science at the time. And so I challenged my mentor, my own physics professor. I challenged him on the topic of evolution. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal because it didn't really have to do with physics. But I pretty much ended my career as a physicist. I planned to get my PhD and all that stuff. Now, that one confrontation was the beginning of the end for me, because I challenged. And I was right. But if I wanted to be socially acceptable, within academia, the world of academia, I was a terrible faux pas. It was an unforgivable sin in their view, essentially, as far as career paths go. And it didn't matter that I was a top scholar. I was a top student. Didn't matter. And I think in some ways maybe that has something to do with it, that they don't want the actual best of the best, because that can be a problem. They want a certain level of, what's the word? I mean, they want you to be just moronic enough to follow along with some things. You have to, or else their structure will fall apart. And so there's reasons for it. But as soon as I marked myself as being somebody who was not safe for the certain foundational pillars that they stood on, well, yeah, no, it didn't matter. It didn't matter, because it's not really about, science isn't really about what people think it's about. It's a lot of politics. It's completely different from what they say. But surprise, surprise. It's just like every major industry in the world. You find out at some point in your life that, oh, wow, this law. I mean, some of it's common knowledge. Like lawyers aren't actually all about following the law. Police aren't really just putting their lives on the line to protect and serve all the time. Like, wow, a lot of what they do is sitting around and writing reports after a crime occurs. But when the crime is going down, they act like they don't see it, or they get scared and run away, or whatever, But see, that's where I think the whole genre of truth is extremely helpful, when you're looking at things like that, and people realize, because you're taught to rely on certain things and trust certain things, and you find out what you can't trust. You really, that, to me, that would aid scientific progress. That would aid social progress. to get rid of all the fake stuff, see what it really is. Are we spending the money? Are we spending the energy in the right places? Is this event really what it appears to be, or is it something entirely different? Who's being manipulated and who is benefiting from this or that? But then going out and ringing an alarm bell and shouting from the parapets, shouting from the rooftops that this or that is actually something else, is not a sustainable or advisable thing to do. I think it's just more of an attitude to adopt for yourself and for the people who are in your care. Like if you're the captain of a ship, it's a small ship. Maybe you only have a few people, but you're the captain. You have to make choices. You're responsible for their safety and their, so you have to decide what risks you're going to take. And it's just like, it's a perfect analogy of piloting a ship, because you can follow all the rules and conventions and things and get yourself into huge trouble, because if somebody else isn't following the protocols, you can put yourself in harm's way. And the other side of the spectrum is like a lot of motorcycle drivers will tell you, or motorcyclists will tell you, that they avoid harm by assuming that everybody else on the road is literally out there to get them. And that's how they stay safe. But that's really no way to live your life in these aspects either, because that's a little extreme and it's not true. But where it is true, when it is true, it really, really matters. And so that's what I am trying to do here. And so with this question of Bigfoot, I think it's about time that it's addressed, where people can see, because I don't know where everybody stands. I think it's a whole spectrum. Since I haven't addressed it with my audience, as soon as I began to address it, I lost 50 subscribers right away, because there are people who have already decided one way or the other, and they didn't like my approach to the topic or my stance or just the topic itself, and they just go, they're done. No, I'm done with you, and that's where they're at. But I think it's worthwhile for those who remain to kind of work through it as I have, if you haven't done it for yourself, which is really the only way to do it, but work through it in your own mind, that you have to make a decision. Because when somebody like Shipton has this photo of this footprint at something like, I think it was at least 18,000 feet elevation, what is that footprint of? What is that photo of? What is Shipton trying to do? Is he delusional? Well, he took a photograph with film of something that looks like a footprint, and did he just push the snow with his thumb? He's low on oxygen and his mind is loopy, and you can believe that. That would make sense, I guess. But other than just wanting to believe that, you have no evidence to take that. It's so if he's not delusional, then is he lying? Is he a liar? Did he do it to make money? That's quite an indictment, for somebody to make, but it's certainly possible. People do that. If that's what you want to believe, that's your reality. That as soon as you see somebody challenge your views or beliefs, then they're crazy, they're a liar. That's quite a jump, but that's how most of society handles it, and I wouldn't advise that. But then, do you take them at their word and believe them logically it would lead to some kind of major discovery. Take it seriously. Well, no, that's a dead end too. It's just never going to go that way. I was that way with space. I loved, before I really looked into it, I loved NASA. And I figured the moon landing was the greatest achievement of all time. And the Saturn V rocket was the absolute most marvelous piece of machinery ever made. Look at what it did. It carried 3 men to the moon. 2 of them walked on the moon and came back first try. No problems. And that's amazing. So I went on this quest to purchase artifacts, or I'm thinking the word comes to mind now, props, but I wanted like scientific manuals from Boeing or whoever in the construction of it, just some kind of like technical documents, things that I would understand as an engineer, I would appreciate, because I thought, imagine the complexity and everything. It has to be declassified by now, and I was looking for that stuff and I couldn't find anything. And the best thing that I could find, somebody found for me, got me as a gift, was this so-called technical manual of the Saturn V, but it was more like a junior high book report in its detail and complexity. It was laughable. And that was the most technical document of the Saturn V that I could find. It's you really look into it, it's like the engineers who did all the calculations and everything. They show these stacks of paper. The woman who was responsible for doing the math, double checking the math on all the equations and calculations, they have a stack of papers that's taller than she is, and she's standing next to it, and it's like you could see it. It's probably on Reddit, posted every day. Look at her, she didn't get credit for it, and the men landed on the moon and all this by her help, whatever. But not one of those papers is. I couldn't find anything of note, of value like that was authentic. It was kind of just didn't make sense to me. But again, it's the edge of reality, and there's no point in pursuing it. Somehow that thing happened the way they claim, and that's just how it's going to be for the next 50 years. But nothing's going to change. You're not going to have a live camera view from the moon of the Earth with zoom in on your house and wave hi to it and see it on the screen as filmed from the moon by the live camera that's solar powered and all that. It's until AI can do that and simulate it with enough drones or something, then they can claim that. But it's not going to be from the moon the way they say. Well, why wouldn't they do that? But those questions make people uncomfortable. That's when they'll call you crazy. They'll write you off. They won't invite you to their dinner party. They, if it means something, if it means a lot to you. And my point is, for most people with these topics, I think the relationship you have with your neighbor or your professor or whoever it is probably more important for your own personal life to maintain that than to be right or to convince somebody about something. Because I totally understand wanting to change the world and this and that, but it's like driving your boat in the fog. You have every right to do that. You have radar. Everybody should have the radar. They should all be signaling and everything, so there's no collisions and everything. But if one person doesn't do the right thing, you're going to have a collision eventually, and you'll be in the right, but you'll also be sunk. So there's all that to think about. But yeah. So I don't know. Where does that leave? Well, after viewing it all this way, it just gives you a new perspective. Now I know what I think. Now I know I have a groove, I should say. It's a toolkit in my brain to be able to discern and handle what is put forth. So when I see evidence of something, if I'm walking in the forest and I see a big footprint, then it's not going to shake up my whole world, because I already know that can happen. But I'm also not going to freak out and panic and, oh my gosh, and try to call the police. Like, that's going to, that's not necessary either, because that's not going to lead to anything. Just go about your business. And again, a lot of things come back to faith, where I have faith as a Christian that it's like the serenity prayer. God, give me the strength to change the things I can change, and the patience and strength to accept the things I can't change. It's kind of like that. And you don't really need to worry about things so much like people do when they get so stressed out about a mass looting, or politics, especially. There's all kinds of things like that. You can get all stressed out over it, and it's a ruse. It's not something that you need to worry about until it is. But it'll be different. You would be able to recognize it. Like in the book Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse. He wrote that, I think it was published in 1929. He could see that the First World War was a opening salvo, and that there would be a Second World War. At that time, they called it the Great War, the war to end all wars. But he saw through that, and that everything was leading up to World War II, and that would be called World War I. And in this fictional book he writes, which is a critique of bourgeois society, he states very plainly in 1929 that there's going to be another war, and it's going to be extremely destructive for the German people, and anybody who doesn't recognize that or see that coming is a fool. But at that time, in that society, that was the furthest thing from their minds about the future. They were supposed to worry about the Jews taking over all their businesses and this and that. Whatever they were told to worry about, and it was just leading them into trouble. And so that's, there are times when it really does matter for the people who escape that. It really mattered that they could see it coming and this and that. So, I'd say it's not 80-20, it's more like 95-5 or 99-1. You don't have to worry, but then every once in a while, because you do, it's like the serenity prayer. There's comes a time when there is something you can change, like what medical procedure you partake in or not, that's invasive into your healthy body. Do you really need to do that? That can be a life-altering choice. And if you know that, you'd want to know the truth. If somebody's feeding you information that doesn't tell the whole story, it's very, very important. And if you have people you are responsible for, you have to make the decision for their health. You're the captain of the boat. It's important for you to know proper safety and precautions and things like that. So that's why I keep doing what I'm doing. It's not for money. I don't make diddly on this much. I am grateful for the contributions that are made. And that's for patrons and people that do contribute. I'm very grateful for that. And I'll never come close. My goal with the channel, when I was becoming extremely popular before the algorithm smacked me down like a 6'8" professional basketball player when I'm going for a layup and just smack that ball into my face. Bam! They smacked me down because I was too successful. I was going to make the shot. And they can't allow it. But at that time, I looked at the channel Smarter Every Day because I kind of saw myself as similar to that, but in a in a different way. We're wiser every day, or instead of looking into what makes the ISS so amazing, he ignores the thing where they have no procedure to handle leaks. The guy who's been on the ISS, Don Pettit, over and over again, what do you do when a leak happens and he doesn't even know where to begin? I guess there would be a procedure you'd find and you'd plug it. No, that would be the first thing you knew. It takes 25 people at least to crew a submarine. You got 3 people on the ISS. You're the one responsible for fixing problems specifically, as he stated, maintenance, troubleshooting. And he didn't know the first thing about dealing with a leak. The Smarter Everyday guy just accepts that. Oh, don't see anything wrong there. I mean, he did kind of react with where his subconscious told him, "You don't know? That's amazing," whatever. So what he did then is he went out and he found the guy who designed the seal, and oh my gosh, what a genius the guy was. He did such a good job that they never even had to worry about any of the seals on that thing ever leaking. It just wouldn't happen. It's just impossible. And I worked in an industry with valves and high pressure seals, captured O-rings, radial O-rings, tensile strength of the metals, the micro cracks and fissures, the cracks in the anodization of the aluminum surfaces, the porosity of certain metals. Things leak. It happens. Almost everything leaks. And the way you detect it is through mass flow with helium. You can also do pressure decay. That's for major leaks. I know what I'm talking about better than the Smarter Everyday guy. But because it's one of these topics where the ISS is the peak technology of engineering, it hasn't leaked. There haven't been catastrophic leaks other than a few silly stories. So that's it. So the guy who designed it, who can't even remember, he's, oh yeah, I guess I designed that. My name's on that. Yeah, it's super genius, man. He's just the most genius guy. He's got his own company now. He's making millions, tricking out motorcycles and such. Of course, because he's the biggest genius in the world. And the Smarter Everyday guy, he made, I think it was 70 times. He had, at the time, he had something like 10 times the number of subscribers as me at that point. But he made, 70 or 700 times the income. I can't remember which. Doesn't even matter. It's closer to 700 or 7,000 now. I mean, it's the improper measurement of how many times income, because it's the 2-cent rule. If you make a penny, then it's a lot, many more times. But it's crazy, and the people that watch it believe it. But the thing is, for their social credit score and their social acceptance in the mainstream, it's very good for them to watch that and believe it and everything. They can't go wrong. But again, like I said, we see that too. It's not like we don't know what they learn, but some of what they learn when it's on these certain topics, the edge of reality, it's not really that way. It's actually something different. It can't be known. It can't be, you can't go out and ferret it out and say, okay, here's a smoking gun, and you're not going to change anything. But for yourself, oh, I really don't have to stay up late at night worrying about Kim Jong-un's ICBM nukes because reasons. But there are people out there, maybe some of you have had a sleepless night worrying about, is China can reach my own city with ICBMs, with nuclear warheads, and they can have a sleepless night, and but that's how the thing goes. You might join the military and work in a bunker with a button, and you believe it's your job. You sit there, and when you're told to push that button, you push that button, and it's gonna wipe out whatever half of civilization, and that's your reality, and they believe it. But if the truth is something different, I would think it would be worthwhile to know. Awesome, I just saw 2 bald eagles fly by my window. 2 bald eagles. Cool. And now, since I mentioned that randomly, that just happened, there's going to be people that say, oh my gosh, it's the double eagle. Oh boy. Oh, there's all that stuff. All this symbolism and all that. Reality is a funny business. See, I didn't see that coming. I shouldn't have said anything. Now I'm going to be in trouble with a bunch of people. Oh my. But yeah, that goes with the territory. That's why I'm not publishing a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff I don't chase down. I'm not going to. It just gets into, it's almost like it's as bad as politics in some ways, and it's not helpful. I just believe me or don't believe me, but it is remarkable that with what I just saw, so I'm just going to say that. They do exist. They fly around, and I just saw 2 of them, and that's the truth. And there's nothing more to it than that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to hear about this for a long time. Let me look at the comments here. Let's see. Politics is never, ever going to be a sensible enterprise. It's just... one of the best decisions I made, I think it was about 2008. I was so into politics and elections and voting, and I watched C-SPAN for fun. What a waste of life to do that. But it was necessary for my growth. I learned about it. I just started to see repeating patterns and things that go nowhere, and pendulums swinging back and forth. And it just becomes obvious things are orchestrated so the pendulum swings this one way at this time and the other way at the other time, and that's it. Stuff's planned out ahead of time. That was the big takeaway, is it's planned out ahead of time, and there isn't that much you can do. But then there are some things you can do to change things. So I'm not completely against any and all participation in that stuff, like local issues. I've seen those come and go, and that does affect life, and you can make changes because you're a powerful, creative being with value. You make changes to your environment, reality, and the people around you. You matter so much more than I could even tell you. It's for each of us to discover on our own what is our purpose, and that's so important, to have the right skill set to cut through the fog and to be safe and practical, to go the right direction. It's like there's a quote. I don't know if he said it. I don't even know if he was who he was supposed to be, Abraham Lincoln, but it's a good quote, that something to the effect of, I'd rather move slowly and not have to double back as much than to move quickly in the wrong direction. I'd rather move slowly in the right direction, or close to the right course and direction, to be careful that way and go somewhere of value that's lasting, that you don't regret, than to move quickly and rashly the wrong way. And so being able to discern these things for yourself is absolutely vital. So I guess it's been an hour. I think I will cut it short here, and I will, this world's a stage. All the world's a stage. I don't know if I would say the rest. We play a role. We have an impact on it, but yes, it's a good analogy, because there is a script, but you can be on the stage and you can improvise, and then others have to improvise based on your improvisation, and therefore you do have an effect. But there are certain acts to the play. There are certain scripted elements and eventualities that are scheduled to take place, that will take place, and there's not much you can do about that. It's fascinating, really. I mean, you read Mark Twain, you read a lot of these other philosophers, and Hermann Hesse covers it extremely well in the book Steppenwolf, about fate versus free will, and how the truth is both and neither, and it's also somewhere in between all at the same time. Just like Forrest Gump said, is it destiny or is it random chance? And then he said, I think it's both. And he's right. Forrest Gump is right. It's a little bit of both, and it can be neither sometimes, but it has to be one or the other or both. I don't know. This realm is an amazing place, but what I'm sharing with you lately is understanding the limits of it, the edge of it, what to expect, how to understand the double slit experiment, things like that. There's what some people refer to as the quantum nature of it. Okay, they're doing construction work next door. There is a proper way to handle it, and I think I've found that groove. And so I'll share more about that as we go along. Sorry about the noise, but I'm ending the stream anyway now. I hope you all have a good one, and I wish you luck in the rest of your day. Until next time, I am UAP, also known as Douglas. Douglas, also known as UAP, actually. And I bid you adieu.